I'm joined now by the governor of Louisiana, Republican Bobby Jindal. Governor, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Chuck, thank you for having me.
Let's go right there to that number. You look at Arkansas, your neighbor to the north. I know you don't want to talk about Arkansas right now, considering what happened with LSU last night. But obviously expanding Medicaid coverage, you'd have more people off of the uninsured rolls in Louisiana if you did it. Why aren't you doing it?
Chuck, look, Democrats and Republicans both want to help the vulnerable, want to help people get affordable, high-quality health care. Medicaid is not the right way to do it. The problem with expanding Medicaid, the problem with the Affordable Care Act, the problem with Obamacare is that it chooses a top-down, closed approach where the government is running your health care. Medicaid's already a program with bad health care outcomes. You look at the Oregon study, they showed by expanding Medicaid there was no improvement in physical outcomes. The program designed to take care of the disabled, of vulnerable children. It was never designed to be there for able-bodied adults. By expanding and creating a new entitlement when we can't afford the ones we've already got, the Affordable Care Act, the president basically is doubling down on a failed approach to providing health care. There's a better way to help those uninsured.
So why aren't you doing? Here's the thing, though. It would cost your state nothing. In fact, you may look. You've got your own fiscal problems right now with the deficit issue. You'd have more money from the federal government. They're paying for it. It's not going to cost Louisiana taxpayers any extra state money. Why not do it until while the law is enacted?
Look, two things. Chuck, that's a great, I'm glad you asked that. One of the things I love is when Democrats say, well, this is free money. This is not free money. Mm-hmm. Every dollar we don't spend on Medicaid is another dollar we don't have to borrow from China. This is the reason we've got nearly $18 trillion in debt. Louisiana taxpayers are federal taxpayers. These are federal tax dollars. Why waste these tax dollars? We've got to stop acting in this city like all of this money is free money. Secondly, when you look at the best way to help folks, it is to decrease the cost of health care. I've proposed a detailed plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. If the president were really serious, why not give states more flexibility? Why not go to states
and say... But he has. I mean, you look at it in Indiana. So why is, I guess, John Kasich wrong? Why is Mike Pence of Indiana wrong? Mike Pence did get the federal government to approve a much different plan. Why not negotiate with the government and do something that you want to do?
In Louisiana, if we were to expand Medicaid, it would cost my taxpayers $1.7 billion over 10 years. For every uninsured person we'd cover, we'd have to kick more than one person out of private insurance. Now think about that. I know this president likes to define success as more people dependent on the government. I would have to take over 200,000 people out of private insurance and put them into Medicaid. To me, that's a huge mistake.
You have 200,000 people not insured at all, though.
Well, but no, I'm saying for every uninsured person you're covering, you're taking more than another person out of private insurance. In Louisiana, in particular, we in a decades-old public hospital system. Unlike other states, we're the only state. We had 10 state-operated hospitals. Through the private sector, public-private partnerships, we've actually improved healthcare access and outcomes. For one example, it used to take 10 days to get a prescription filled. Now you can get it done in 10 minutes. Through Bayou Health, we reformed our program. We had, before 5% of our adults were getting preventative care screenings. Now over 80% are. Chuck, my point is this. There are better ways to provide health care to the vulnerable, to the uninsured. The answer is not for the government to be running health care. The answer is not to expand a failed program, a one-size-fits-all approach like Medicaid.
You think Medicaid's a total failure?
No, I think Medicaid...
Then why do you implement any of it?
I think Medicaid, when it was targeted for the disabled, for children, in Louisiana, we cover over 95% of our children have coverage. I think that it could be improved with more flexibility. Oregon to Harvard, now this wasn't a conservative study. The Harvard study showed when you expanded Medicaid after 2 years in Oregon, there was no improvement in physical health care outcomes. Simply giving people a card without giving them access to health care, to doctors, to hospitals, doesn't improve anything.
Very quickly on immigration. If the president goes through with his executive action, do you think Republicans on Capitol Hill ought to use even the power of shutting down the government to stop him from doing it?
Two things. I don't think the president should shut down the government to try to break the Constitution. The reality is this. I do think...
You think the president would be shutting down the government?
Absolutely.
So you do want Republicans to fight him on this to the point that it could shut down the government?
I don't think the president should shut down the government.
But you're twisting my question.
Well, wait.
So that means you want that kind of showdown.
Let's step back and understand what we're talking about. So the president said, I want to break the law. He purposely said, I'm going to wait till after the election because I know it's not going to be popular to grant amnesty to millions of folks here that are here illegally. We had an election. He said his policies were on the ballot. He lost in red states, purple states, blue states. The American people overwhelmingly ejected and rejected his policies. Now he's saying, I'm still going to break the law. Talk about arrogance. Where was this president used to say elections have consequences? How can the Congress force the president to follow the law? I would expect even Democrats who may agree with him on substance to say the right way to do this is to follow the Constitution, follow the law. No, we shouldn't shut down the government, but absolutely Republicans should do everything they can to force the president to follow the law. Let's secure the border. No, the president shouldn't shut down the government so that he can break the law.
All right, I want to ask you about your own presidential ambitions. A majority in Louisiana disapprove of your job as governor. Why is that a launching pad to Iowa and New Hampshire?
Chuck, I don't care at all about poll numbers. I never have. The reality is I was elected in Louisiana to make generational changes. Look at what we've done in Louisiana. So now we've cut our state budget 26%, cut the number of state employees 34%. We've got the best private sector economy in a generation. Our economy has grown twice as fast as the national economy, more people working than ever before, at a higher income than ever before. We transformed the charity hospitals. That's like the third rail in Louisiana politics. Statewide school choice, so our children have the opportunity to get a great education. If I were to run, and I haven't made that decision, if I were to run for president, it's because I believe in our country. The American dream is at jeopardy. This president has defined the American dream as more dependence on the government. We need to restore the American dream, but it's more about opportunity and growth, not redistribution.
But very quickly, one part of your record, you now have nearly $1 billion hole in your budget. Every mid-year review, your deficit has grown. You did a big tax cut at the beginning of your term as governor. Revenues haven't followed.
That's not actually true, Chuck. The $1 billion is if you assume we grow government next year. Our budget's been balanced every year. We have never raised taxes. I've had 8 credit upgrades in the major credit rating agencies, best credit ratings in decades in our state. We've actually balanced our budget every single year without running deficits, without raising taxes.
You constitutionally have to balance your budget.
And we need to do that in D.C. as well. But my point is we've actually made the tough choices. Unlike D.C., we cut our spending $9 billion. I'm not talking about cutting growth. We cut our budget by $9 billion. We actually balanced our budget, and we've done it by growing the private sector. We've got, right now in Louisiana, we've got more than 80,000 jobs, more than $50 billion in private investment coming into our state. Our economy is doing so well. When I was elected, our worry was we were losing our sons and daughters. Today, our biggest challenge is filling all these great jobs.
Governor Bobby Jindal, I will have to leave it there. You're going to decide when? By the first of the year?
First half of next year, we are praying about this. Okay. The bottom line is let's restore the American dream for our children and grandchildren.
Governor, thanks for coming back to Meet the Press.